When we speak about breaking witchcraft, many people immediately imagine external rituals, objects, or enemies who are out there casting something against them. But the truth is, before you can break anything, you must first learn to recognize it. Awareness is not just the first step, it is the very foundation of freedom. If you do not see the trap, you will keep walking into it. If you cannot name the pattern, you will mistake it for coincidence. And this is exactly how witchcraft thrives, by keeping itself hidden in plain sight. So what does witchcraft look like in daily life? It is not always black candles and incantations. More often, it is the invisible weight on your chest when you wake up in the morning. It is the sudden confusion in your mind when you were once clear. It is the irrational conflict in your relationships that seems to appear from nowhere. It is the repeated patterns of loss, of stagnation, of doors closing when they should have opened. These are not random. They are signals. They are the language of interference. And if you are sensitive enough to pay attention, you begin to see that something is feeding on your energy, keeping you distracted, keeping you weak. Awareness is a form of light. Imagine a dark room where you feel fear because you cannot see what is around you. The moment you switch on the light, the fear dissolves. Nothing has changed except your perception, but that shift is everything. In the same way, when you become aware of witchcraft or manipulation operating in your life, you immediately weaken its hold. It loses power because its strength depends on you staying blind. This is why people who practice spiritual control prefer secrecy and shadows. Once you name the energy, once you call it out for what it is, the first chain breaks. But awareness is not only about detecting external interference. It is also about recognizing your own inner state. You see, witchcraft cannot attach to you unless it finds something to hold on to. If you are filled with unresolved anger, then anger becomes the handle it pulls. If you are drowning in fear, fear becomes the key it turns. This is why some people are attacked repeatedly. They carry inner hooks without realizing it. And this is why the work of awareness is not about paranoia, constantly blaming others for sending bad energy. True awareness means looking within and asking what part of me is vulnerable. What unresolved wound is still open? What inner voice have I ignored? The philosopher once said, "Know yourself and you will be free." To know yourself in this context means to recognize both your strengths and your weak points. It means being honest about the places where you are not yet strong, so that no external force can exploit them. Awareness is not fear, it is clarity. It is not about obsessing over enemies, it is about awakening to truth. And truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. Think about it. When you suddenly realize that a certain person always leaves you drained after conversation, you begin to distance yourself naturally. When you notice that your own thoughts spiral in self-sabotage at the exact moments you are about to succeed, you can interrupt that cycle. The recognition itself is the solution beginning to unfold. You don't have to fight blindly in the dark anymore. You are now responding with intelligence. The most powerful individuals are not those who know how to fight, but those who know how to see. Because the one who sees clearly cannot be deceived, and the one who cannot be deceived cannot be controlled. That is why awareness is not just a step, it is the very essence of spiritual strength. So as we move deeper into solutions, remember this freedom begins with the eyes of the mind opening. If you train yourself to see what is really happening inside you and around you, you have already broken half of the power that witchcraft tries to exercise. And once you see, you cannot go back to blindness. The moment you choose awareness, you step into a light that no darkness can hide from. You said, expand key point 2 into a 600-word segment that flows naturally within the overall speech, aligning seamlessly with the other key points. The tone should be intellectual and authoritative, yet accessible, mirroring Shi Heng Yi approach. The language should be clear and direct, with a focus on psychological and philosophical depth. Avoid any formal headings, keeping the delivery conversational, as if speaking to an audience in a lecture or interview format. Conclude with a powerful, concise closing statement that leaves the audience with something to reflect on, motivating them to act on the insights shared. ChatGPT said, if awareness is the light that allows you to see the patterns of witchcraft and interference, then cleansing is what allows you to remain untouched by them. Imagine this: you walk through a dusty street every day, and no matter how careful you are, some of that dust will cling to your clothes. Over time, if you never wash, the dust hardens and your garment begins to lose its original color. This is what happens in the inner world when you live without cleansing. Fear, resentment, guilt, jealousy. These emotions settle in, layer upon layer, until you no longer see clearly. And when your inner space is cluttered like this, you become an easy host for external forces. Witchcraft does not always need to overpower you with raw force. It works by attaching itself to what is already there. If there is bitterness in you, it magnifies bitterness. If there is insecurity, it amplifies insecurity. If there is shame, it deepens shame until you feel too small to stand. So the real question is not only, who is sending something against me, but also, what inside me allows this to land? This is why cleansing is such a powerful solution. When you purify your inner world, you strip away the hooks that witchcraft relies on. It has nothing left to grip. Cleansing can be approached on several levels. On the mental level, it means becoming conscious of your thoughts and refusing to let negative narratives dominate. How often do we replay old wounds in our minds as if rehearsing pain? Each replay strengthens the chain. Mental cleansing is the act of interrupting that cycle, choosing to direct the mind toward clarity rather than confusion. On the emotional level, cleansing means letting go of the grudges and resentments that poison the spirit. These emotions feel justified in the moment, but they are like acid we hold in our own hands. They corrode us from within, leaving cracks through which manipulation can enter. And on the physical level, cleansing can be as simple as fasting, prayer, meditation, or even stepping into silence. These are not empty rituals, they are methods of resetting your system. They are ways of reminding the body and the mind that they do not belong to chaos, but to order. Some traditions burn incense, some use water, some use words. The form matters less than the intention. What is essential is that you regularly clear out what does not belong so that you can return to yourself in a state of wholeness. Philosophically, cleansing is also about alignment. When your inner world is pure, you resonate with truth, and truth has its own protective quality. Darkness cannot cling to light because the frequencies are incompatible. If you are weighed down by anger, you resonate with anger, and anger calls more of itself into your life. But if you cleanse, if you cultivate peace and clarity, you begin to resonate with strength, with purity, with authority. Then, even if witchcraft is directed at you, it simply does not land. It falls away like water off a polished stone. People often ask, how often should I cleanse? And the answer is the same as asking, how often should I wash? The dust of life will always try to settle. So cleansing is not a one-time solution but a continuous practice. It is a discipline, and through discipline you become untouchable. So do not underestimate this step. Awareness allows you to see, but cleansing allows you to stay clear. Without it, awareness will show you the enemy, but you will still be vulnerable. With it, you walk into the world light, unburdened and unshakable. When your inner space is clean, nothing can take root in you that does not belong. And when nothing foreign can take root, you become your own sanctuary, a place no witchcraft can enter. You said, expand key point 3 into a 600-word segment that flows naturally within the overall speech, aligning seamlessly with the other key points. The tone should be intellectual and authoritative, yet accessible, mirroring Shi Heng Yi approach. The language should be clear and direct, with a focus on psychological and philosophical depth. Avoid any formal headings, keeping the delivery conversational, as if speaking to an audience in a lecture or interview format. Conclude with a powerful, concise closing statement that leaves the audience with something to reflect on, motivating them to act on the insights shared. ChatGPT said, once you have cultivated awareness and begun the process of cleansing your inner world, the next dimension of strength arises through the spoken word. Many underestimate the force of speech, treating words as casual sounds that disappear the moment they are spoken. But in reality, words are vibrations that shape reality. They are carriers of intention, and intention is what bends energy. In almost every spiritual tradition across the world, sound is seen as the origin of creation. In the scriptures it is said, in the beginning was the word. In Eastern philosophy, it is sound syllables, mantras, and chants that dissolve illusion and open gateways to higher consciousness. Even in our ordinary daily lives, a single sentence can inspire courage, or it can break someone's spirit. Words are never neutral. They are either healing or they are harming. This is why witchcraft itself often relies on spoken formulas. Curses are spoken, spells are recited, names are called out and bound with intent. If destructive forces use words as weapons, then it is only through words of power that we break them. The spoken word becomes the antidote, the counter vibration that dismantles the structures built in shadow. But the effectiveness of speech does not lie in the sound alone. It lies in the conviction behind it. To whisper a prayer with doubt in your heart is like shooting an arrow without a string. It goes nowhere. To declare with full presence and belief is to strike with precision. Think of the difference between saying, I hope I am free, and declaring, I am free. The first is a wish, fragile and uncertain. The second is a command, a statement that aligns your mind, body, and spirit into one vibration of authority. And authority is what breaks chains. When you speak with authority, you are not begging for freedom, you are announcing it. And the energy of the universe responds accordingly. On a psychological level, spoken words rewire the subconscious mind. Most people live under inner spells far more than outer ones. The spell of, I am not good enough. The spell of, I will always fail. The spell of, I am unlucky. These phrases, repeated silently or aloud over years, become chains that hold people down more effectively than any curse. But the moment you reverse the language, you begin to dissolve the prison, to replace I cannot with I can, to replace I am broken with why I am whole. These may sound simple, but they are acts of reclaiming authority over your own narrative, and the mind follows the narrative it hears most often. On a spiritual level, the spoken word carries a resonance beyond what we can see. When you pray, when you chant, when you speak affirmations, you are sending vibrations into the unseen field. And just as a tuning fork can make another tuning fork vibrate without touching it, your words create ripples that shift the atmosphere around you. That is why some rooms feel different the moment a certain prayer is spoken. It is not imagination, it is resonance. The challenge for most people is that they do not guard their speech. They speak carelessly, they declare weakness over themselves, they joke about failure, and without realizing it, they reinforce the very energy they wish to escape. Every word you speak either builds your protection or weakens it. So if you are serious about breaking witchcraft and interference, you must discipline your tongue as much as your mind. Speak light, speak truth, speak strength, because each word becomes a thread in the fabric of your destiny. And when you combine awareness, cleansing, and the power of the spoken word, you create a triad of strength. You see the interference for what it is, you remove the inner clutter that makes you vulnerable, and then you speak reality into alignment with higher truth. This is how you shift from being a passive target to being an active creator of your freedom. Remember this, silence allows witchcraft to echo, but the spoken word silences witchcraft. Speak with clarity, speak with authority, and speak with belief, because the one who commands with their voice will never live under the command of another. You said, expand key point 4 into a 600-word segment that flows naturally within the overall speech, aligning seamlessly with the other key points. The tone should be intellectual and authoritative, yet accessible, mirroring Shi Heng Yi approach. The language should be clear and direct, with a focus on psychological and philosophical depth. Avoid any formal headings, keeping the delivery conversational, as if speaking to an audience in a lecture or interview format. Conclude with a powerful, concise closing statement that leaves the audience with something to reflect on, motivating them to act on the insights. Share. ChatGPT said, after awareness, cleansing, and the conscious use of speech, we come to something even deeper, the shield that is formed by daily practice. Many people believe protection is something you can invoke only in times of crisis, like calling for help when the house is already on fire. But true protection is not a sudden action, it is a state that is cultivated through discipline. Just as the body becomes strong not by lifting a weight once, but by consistent training, so too does the spirit become untouchable through practices that are repeated with devotion. This is where most people struggle. They want freedom instantly, yet they neglect the daily rituals that sustain it. They pray when they are afraid, but forget when they are strong. They meditate when they are confused, but abandon it when clarity returns. They fast in desperation, but once the breakthrough comes, they return to excess. This inconsistency leaves gaps, openings that negative forces can easily exploit. Think of a warrior who sharpens his sword only when the battle begins. By then it is already too late. The one who sharpens daily walks into battle already prepared, and in many cases, the battle never even reaches him because his strength radiates before the conflict arises. So what do we mean by daily practices? At the core, they are actions that anchor you to your higher self. Meditation is one. When you sit in silence and observe the movements of your mind, you are training yourself not to be carried away by every thought or emotion. This stillness becomes your shield. Breathwork is another. By consciously directing your breath, you regulate your life force, strengthening both body and mind. Sacred reading or chanting also builds a protective layer, because the words you absorb shape the patterns of your inner world. Fasting cleanses the body of excess, sharpens the mind, and weakens the grip of compulsions that often become doors for manipulation. What these practices have in common is consistency. They do not show their full effect in one day, but over time they rewire you completely. When practiced faithfully, they form what can only be described as an invisible shield. You begin to notice that the things that once disturbed you no longer affect you in the same way. Attacks that once created fear or doubt now bounce off you like arrows against armor. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. Philosophically, daily practice is also an act of alignment with rhythm. Everything in life has rhythm: the rising of the sun, the beating of the heart, the flow of the seasons. When you establish your own rhythm through practice, you harmonize with the greater order of existence. And when you are in harmony, you are protected. Disharmony is what opens the door to interference. Harmony is what closes it. This is why discipline is not about rigid control, but about resonance. On a psychological level, daily practice reshapes identity. When you meditate every morning, you no longer identify as someone vulnerable to confusion. You see yourself as someone anchored in clarity. When you chant affirmations daily, you no longer feel powerless. You begin to embody strength. Identity is destiny, and daily practices are what engrave identity into the core of your being. So, the shield of sacred practice is not built in one dramatic gesture. It is built in the small, repeated choices that accumulate into a fortress. It is the discipline of showing up for yourself every single day, whether you feel like it or not. And in that discipline, you find freedom. If you want to walk through life beyond the reach of witchcraft, cultivate practices that keep you anchored. Do not wait for the storm to begin before you build your shelter. Build it now, brick by brick, day by day. Because in the end, your daily rituals do not just protect you, they transform you into someone who no longer needs protection. You said, expand key point 5 into a 600-word segment that flows naturally within the overall speech, aligning seamlessly with the other key points. The tone should be intellectual and authoritative, yet accessible, mirroring Shi Heng Yi approach. The language should be clear and direct, with a focus on psychological and philosophical depth. Avoid any formal headings, keeping the delivery conversational, as if speaking to an audience in a lecture or interview format. Conclude with a powerful, concise closing statement that leaves the audience with something to reflect on, motivating them to act on the insights shared. ChatGPT said, when we speak of witchcraft, of manipulation, of unseen forces that seek to bind and control, one of the most important truths to understand is this: nothing can attach to you unless there is a connection. These connections are often invisible, but they are very real. They take the form of energetic cords, threads of attachment woven between you and another person, situation, or even an old wound. Through these cords, influence flows. Sometimes it is subtle, an intrusive thought, a recurring fear, a sudden exhaustion that doesn't belong to you. Sometimes it is heavy, feeling bound to someone long after the relationship has ended, or being unable to move forward in life because you are still tethered to the past. The act of cutting cords is not about denying your experiences or pretending people never mattered. It is about recognizing where the natural flow of connection has been hijacked and transformed into control. Every healthy relationship is built on mutual exchange. But when one person feeds while the other only empties, that exchange becomes parasitic. Witchcraft operates in the same way. It plugs into your energy system, siphons what it needs, and leaves you weakened. This is why you can feel drained without knowing why. Something is pulling from you, and until you sever that cord, you remain a host. Psychologically, this principle is very familiar. Think of the cycles of thought that loop endlessly in your mind. An argument from years ago still replays. A criticism someone spoke still echoes. These mental loops are cords, threads that tie you to moments long gone but still alive within you. Every time you replay the scene, you strengthen the cord, and energy continues to flow out of you. Spiritually, cords operate in the same way. They bind not only memory but also emotion and energy. And the more unaware you are, the stronger the influence grows. To cut these cords requires authority and intention. Visualization is one method, seeing the cords with your inner eye and declaring them severed. Some traditions use rituals with fire or water, others use prayer or chanting. But the essence is the same. You are returning what is not yours and reclaiming what belongs to you. You are saying, "This is my life force. It does not belong to anyone else. I choose to stand in my own sovereignty." This act is not always easy, because cords can feel familiar. People even mistake them for love. They say, "I cannot let go because I care." But true care does not drain you. It strengthens both sides. If a connection consistently weakens you, it is not love, it is attachment. And attachment is often the very channel through which manipulation flows. That is why breaking cords is not cruelty, it is clarity. You are not rejecting people, you are rejecting control. You are not cutting life-giving bonds, you are cutting the ones that steal life from you. Philosophically, this practice reflects a deeper truth, that freedom always requires separation from illusion. As long as you are entangled in energies that are not yours, you cannot fully live as yourself. The more cords you carry, the less of you remains. But when you cut them, when you return every fragment that does not belong, you become whole again, and wholeness is power. So, as you walk this path of awareness, cleansing, speech, and daily practice, remember to also reclaim your sovereignty by cutting cords of control. Do not be afraid to let go. Do not fear the emptiness that follows, because it is not emptiness, it is space. And space is where your own life force can finally return. When you release what does not belong to you, you discover the strength that was always yours. And no force, no spell, no chain can hold a person who stands whole in their own energy. You said, expand key point 6 into a 600-word segment that flows naturally within the overall speech, aligning seamlessly with the other key points. The tone should be intellectual and authoritative, yet accessible, mirroring Shi Heng Yi approach. The language should be clear and direct, with a focus on psychological and philosophical depth. Avoid any formal headings, keeping the delivery conversational, as if speaking to an audience in a lecture or interview format. Conclude with a powerful, concise closing statement that leaves the audience with something to reflect on, motivating them to act on the insights shared. ChatGPT said, after you have trained your awareness, cleansed your inner world, spoken words of authority, built the shield of daily practice, and cut the cords of control, what remains is the highest and most decisive step: alignment with a higher power. This is the point at which witchcraft, curses, and manipulation lose their meaning, because you no longer stand in your own strength alone. You stand in resonance with something greater. Think of alignment as tuning an instrument. A single violin, if slightly out of tune, sounds weak, even unpleasant. But when tuned correctly, it blends into the symphony effortlessly. Human beings are like instruments. Out of tune, they become vulnerable, unstable, easily swayed by fear, by suggestion, by external influence. But once aligned with the deeper order of life, whether you call it God, Tao, Source, or universal truth, you vibrate with harmony. And harmony cannot be manipulated. This alignment is not about religion in the rigid sense. It is about recognizing that there is a higher law, a greater intelligence that governs existence. The tides rise and fall, the sun sets and returns. The body heals itself from within, all without your command. There is order woven into the fabric of reality. Witchcraft thrives in disorder, in chaos, in confusion. But the moment you anchor yourself into alignment with order, chaos has no doorway into your life. Philosophically, alignment is the realization that you are not the ultimate source of your power, but a channel for it. Many people feel exhausted because they try to resist manipulation with their limited personal strength. They fight, they struggle, they battle endlessly, and eventually they are drained. But the one who is aligned does not fight with exhaustion. They draw from a current far larger than themselves. Imagine a branch trying to resist the storm on its own. It will snap. But when it remains rooted in the tree, it bends yet never breaks, because its strength comes from its connection. On a psychological level, alignment removes the burden of constant fear. Fear comes from believing you must control everything. But when you know you are aligned with a higher order, you stop overthinking. You stop asking, what if they attack me? What if this spell is too strong? What if I cannot win? Instead, you stand calmly, because you know the foundation beneath you is unshakable. This calmness itself is power, because the one who is calm cannot be manipulated by panic. Alignment also demands integrity. You cannot be aligned with higher truth while living in lies. You cannot call upon divine authority while acting in contradiction to it. This is why alignment is not a passive belief, but an active way of life. It requires that your thoughts, your words, and your actions flow in the same direction. When you live this way, you are no longer fractured. You are whole. And in wholeness, there is authority. What does this look like in practice? It can be as simple as beginning each day with surrender. I align myself with truth. I align myself with light. I align myself with the higher order of existence. It can be expressed through gratitude, through prayer, through conscious choice making. Every act of alignment adds strength to your shield. And the remarkable thing is, the moment you are aligned, you do not even need to fight witchcraft directly. It simply cannot touch you. Darkness has no claim where there is light. So the journey culminates here in alignment. Awareness gave you sight. Cleansing gave you clarity. The spoken word gave you authority. Daily practice gave you discipline. Cutting cords gave you sovereignty. But alignment gives you invincibility. It is the realization that you are never alone in this battle. And when you truly embody this, something shifts permanently. You stop living as a hunted target, and you begin walking as one who carries presence. You are no longer simply defending yourself from witchcraft. You are radiating a force before which witchcraft dissolves.